Hello, I'm James Williams, and this is Men's Matters Radio. Now, I hope you all had a great Christmas for 2013 and a very happy New Year, but unfortunately, as is the case with human life, it's not happy for everybody. So I had about 3 cases of violence come to my attention during the period, and so I took the trouble of phoning up Hampshire Police, that's Hampshire in England, police, to see if they operated, or at least claimed to operate, an equal policy on men and women, the way they're treated. Now, I've recorded the telephone call I made to the police helpline, and in it are the stories I talk about. So here we go.
The extension number, please press 1. For custody, press 2. To report a crime, press 3. Or for general inquiries, press 4.
Good morning, Hampshire Police.
Oh, good morning. My name's James Williams. I'm not phoning up for complaints or an offence. I'll just ring up some advice, if that's okay.
Yep, if you could hold the line for me just for a moment then, I'll place you through to police inquiries and I'll be able to advise you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, police inquiries. May I help you?
Yes, hello. Sorry to trouble you. My name's James Williams. I'm just phoning up for some advice, if that's possible.
Yeah?
Yes, it's a men's advice line I run. It's a radio programme I put on YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I also meet various young men in the community to try and give them support and advice as best I can.
Yeah.
Now, I've got... I understand, of course, you can't talk about specific cases because that wouldn't be fair on anybody.
Yeah.
But I have 3 incidents of late that have happened, 2 of which the police are dealing with. But I'm just curious to know how I can advise young chaps involved in this and their relatives how to cope with violent females.
Okay, so it's domestic violence sort of incidents, is it?
Well, one of them actually involved a gang attack, which wasn't really domestic violence, and it happened in Gosport before Christmas, or around about Christmas time.
Yeah.
And where a young male teenager, had been targeted through Facebook. And I have to say the police are dealing with this. They've taken the Facebook details down as a sort of hate attack.
Yeah.
Although the young man is not of an ethnic origin or anything like that. But he received death threats and all kinds of stuff. And then shortly before Christmas, he was set upon not far from his home by a gang of 30, most of which were girls.
Yeah.
It was estimated at least 70% were girls. Now, his life was put in jeopardy, and because he had the death threats were already extant. They were just a mob. Some of them were older than him and everything else. He fought them off, but fortunately for him, the police were called fairly quickly by a neighbour, but the police didn't turn up for 30 minutes. That's not the police's fault, because when they did turn up, there were 22 police officers turned up. Okay, but in that time, he was battered and bruised, scratched, kicked, everything else, thrown around, and he had to fight them off and fighting for his life. Now, his parents came out to help, and so certain neighbours came out to help. One man came out of his door, and he has a job as a doorman. The first thing he got was a punch in the face from a girl and split his mouth open, right?
Yeah.
Now, the young man in question only threw punches at the male assailants, not the female ones. Now, the female ones apparently were wearing rings, so they obviously caused cuts and lacerations. And his mother was set upon by 8 girls who threw her through a fence and started pounding her. And the woman had to have paramedics come and attend her because she had a heart problem.
Yeah.
Now, when the police did arrive, and they obviously sorted them out as much, then I understand there was another running battle on another street with the police. 8 people were arrested, 6 of them were girls. But the question was put, the young man was afraid to hit one girl in spite of the violence because of afraid of him being prosecuted. So how can you advise a teenager fighting for his life about, violence, defending himself, when he's got this in his head that he can't fight off a girl that's trying to kill him?
Well, reasonable violence towards, for self-preservation is not a problem. Police wouldn't take action against that if you're defending yourself. But yeah, I don't. What advice are you after?
Well, I would like to know, because you see, basically, this is not the only time I've come across this where you've got a violent female perpetrator, and the male is afraid to do anything because of the Stop Violence Against Women campaign and other things, telling him that he's the bad guy when he's actually not the bad guy, he's the victim.
Yeah.
I mean, I have another situation that happened. Again, the police were in attendance in Grafton Street in Portsmouth. This is on New Year's Day after a New Year's Eve party that went a little bit astray. They were called to an address, and the woman was taken away and arrested and she's had, apparently, I understand, 10 or 11 other violent incidents besides that. The man was taken to hospital for treatment, but he's living. I mean, there are other issues. There are drugs involved in this as well, of course. So it's a complicated case. But nevertheless, how does a guy put up with that? Because if he'd laid a glove on that woman, he would have been the one arrested, and that's what I'm concerned about. It's not, it's like playing a sort of game with your hands tied behind your back.
Yeah, I mean, if he's being... What would probably happen is that they would both be initially arrested, and then it would be, they would take statements from both parties. If there were counter-allegations, then that would be dealt with as well. But, I mean, if there's self-defense, if they're offering violence for self-defense reasons, then there's not a problem. Reasonable force is absolutely fine. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure what more to advise you, really. I mean, did you want to speak to an officer that's been dealing with this? What are you after?
No, I'm not after. I mean, these cases. I mean, I'm not going to talk about specific these cases because they're ongoing and there's prosecutions in the offing on this. But what I'm concerned about is that it seems to be in the general population a fear about laying a glove on any female for any reason whatsoever. Obviously, an aggressive thing is unacceptable. I would say that. But in defensive terms, it's very difficult for. It puts young men in particular into a situation where they don't know what to do. I have another case, if I can make, which has not come to the police attention, and I've advised the young man's sister to contact the police about it, where he's a young man, I think he's 19 or 20 years of age, they've got a baby, but his partner is assaulting him on a regular basis. She's thrown things at him. He comes to see his parents. He has cuts and bruises and stuff like that.
I mean, domestic violence is treated. It doesn't matter who the perpetrator is. We would treat all domestic violence as the same. If it's woman on male or male on woman, it needs to be reported to us that we can take action. And it doesn't matter, what the gender is as to who the aggrieved or who the perpetrator is. So it's not like the old days where it's always assumed that it's the woman that is the victim. It's not the case at all. Domestic violence against men is on the rise, and we're taking calls about it all the time. It's not something we wouldn't deal with. We wouldn't take seriously. It is taken seriously. Obviously, the problem with getting males to actually report it is what we're trying to increase at the moment. So there's quite a lot around at the moment about domestic violence against men. So the advice to give them is to report it, is to make sure they report it. And if they need to offer any self-defence in any situation, then they're entitled to do that.
Okay, that's very reassuring to hear that, because I've come across other cases where it's the way the police behaved about a couple of years ago wasn't very balanced, but that was because the information they received wasn't correct. But yes, to hear that is quite reassuring. And I have actually passed on to this young man's sister for him to contact Mankind Initiative and also to report it, because he's got to the stage he's thinking of leaving the home, because he's afraid that if he stays, the provocation will be so great that he will hit back.
Yeah.
And that's what he's concerned about, and he's in a dilemma, and it's causing a great deal of stress, because obviously he loves his child and he doesn't want to lose contact with that, and that all happens when you leave the house. I've advised them not to leave the home, but to deal with it in the home, and get support from and do report it by all means. But he doesn't want to go and he doesn't want to see her locked up. He just doesn't want to be hit anymore.
Yeah.
That's how it is. He doesn't want to sort of be prosecuted. And obviously there's love there, and he doesn't want to destroy that with him, But the problem I've seen around, and like you said, things are changing, but there's lots of advice and support for females, but nothing hardly for males, and I just find it ought to change more. Perhaps I know from Mankind, I've spoken to them about this issue, and they often say they've told me that the reports they get about incidents are usually from female relatives who are reporting on behalf.
Yeah.
So that's quite an interesting aspect, But anyway, thank you very much for your advice, and I will pass that on to them.
Okay.
And it's very reassuring that Hampshire Police are, taking things in a balanced way.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So there we go. That's my opening gambit, if you like, for 2014. I managed to find another light in this place. It's always dark in my house. I don't know why. Yes, and since that discussion, I found out that in the mob attack, when the police did their arrests, they had an identity parade, but remarkably, it was only males that were put on the identity parade. So, equality or not? That's something else to phone them up about, isn't it? And ask them about. But for now, I'll leave that because it's undergoing inquiries, and we'll just see if they actually do charge any of the female assailants in that attack. Okay, that's James Williams signing out for this time, Men's Matters Radio, and see you next time. Take care of yourself.